Hard work versus natural talent is one of the main themes of the Naruto series that it tries to juggle, and it's a really great theme. It's one of the themes that I think it just personifies the Naruto series, and I know two people better incorporate those two aspects of the series and who we're talking about today. Sasuke versus Guy. Today I got my buddy Virtue with me. Say it, everybody.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Thank you for having me on. I think this is going to be a really good discussion for sure.
Full disclosure, I gotta apologize. I keep having you on like Uchiha versus battles. I don't know. It's just like a.
Nah, it's cool. That's a dope. I like it.
So today we're gonna be doing this in a similar vein as as the Sasuke versus the Akatsuki video that we did a couple months ago, which was just covering each Sasuke in different points in the series. Not every single Sasuke, because Rinnegan Sasuke, it's. I mean, if we did Rinnegan Sasuke, we'd have to put him against 8-gate Guy, and at best, it's a draw. I like Part 1 Sasuke, and I don't want him getting his stuff rocked in by Jonin guys. So the Sasukes that are worth talking about are Hebi Sasuke, post Orochimaru absorbed, 5 Kage Summit Sasuke with both his Taka and his Kage Summit feats, and then EMS Sasuke, early, late. So I think that's just like the easiest way to tackle this topic, and we're going to see and decide which one works, which aspect triumphs. Is it natural talent or is it hard work?
Well, I think it really just depends how hard, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, right? So it just depends what Sasuke he's doing at the time, and then what Guy's doing at the time. So I think it really does matter on their forms throughout the series.
Yeah, Hebi Sasuke, like with both post Orochimaru absorbed versus Might Guy in the beginning of the series. Now, this is like Might Guy that specifically fought the 30% clone of Kisame. No, something that I need to get out of the way, and like y'all can ask Virtue, like Guy is probably one of the most under talked about characters in versus battle videos. It's like I can't remember the last time I actually seen my Guy being covered in the versus battle videos. So it's really difficult for me, especially in like the early like Shippuden era, to kind of scale Guy, because he's kind of like, he's not inconsistent, but again, he's just not talked about enough in versus battle videos. So when it comes to Guy, it might actually depend on like how you think Hebi Sasuke would do against Kisame. Now the thing is, now Guy didn't fight full power Kisame. He fought 30% clone of Kisame. But the thing is like as soon as he went into the 6th gate, he just curb stomped that 30% clone. Like it was like a night and day difference. And so like it kind of depends on like how you think that like Hebi Sasuke would do against Kisame. And like I think Kisame has like a better is more physically stronger than Hebi Sasuke, but Hebi Sasuke has like a better toolkit to fight someone like Kisame. Now, so when it comes to Sasuke versus Guy, this is something like I might have to like repeatedly say, because in my last Sasuke versus the Akatsuki video that we did, I was standing on Kirin like a lot in that video.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, rightfully so. I was saying that like it kind of depends on how you take Kirin's usage. And I mean that to say that, so in his fight with Itachi, he had to make a thunderstorm in order to gather the lightning in order to drop it. But that was also because he was running low on chakra and just couldn't like summon it on his own. But in the Tenchi Bridge arc, during his reunion with Team 7 or Team Kakashi, he literally just made a couple hand signs and was like, all right, well, I'm done with you guys. And then just was prepared to drop it like it was nothing, like just on the spot. It depends on how you feel like Kirin is handled. And I say that I bring Kirin up right now is because in that Sasuke vs. the Akatsuki video, I was saying that Kirin was a battle ender for a lot of, like, majority of the video, because like more than half of the Akatsuki members' arsenals consist of mid to long range fighting. Like there's really not a whole lot of people who are using Guy's style of fighting when it comes to like just speed rushing somebody or blitzing somebody right off hand and just using the good old fisticuffs. That's not most in the arsenals of the Akatsuki. Sasuke's not used to fighting someone who's just like that overwhelmingly strong and that overwhelmingly fast. At least not in Hebi days anyway. So I don't know if he'd be willing to like drop Kirin if Guy starts to rush him, in close quarters, because for obvious reasons, if he just drops it, he's gonna kill himself. So as far as long range jutsu goes, I don't know if like any of Sasuke's fireballs, fire style jutsu, his lightning style jutsu, his lightning Senbon, Chidori stream, I'm not so sure if like that will be able to catch Guy in the 6th gate. This is also depending on how you scale Guy to Kakashi.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's a couple different interpretations to how strong you think they are in comparison, right? So we have a lot of different inferences throughout their life where Guy, even when he's standing alongside a younger, stronger Anbu Kakashi, he's still wanting to do these competitions with him. And, you know, Kakashi's like, can we just do something a little more laid back instead? So they're still constantly doing these things, right? But it's like, okay, how do they progress? And then it's kind of interesting as whenever we get to part 1, Kakashi's arguably at his worst. He's let himself go. All these boring missions have just been nerfing him. And now it's like Guy is stated by Sasuke to be faster. Now, there's ways to interpret this. There's ways to say, well, Sasuke really doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to analyzing a full-speed Kakashi. He just does not know. Whenever he sees this guy, he just would assume such. But he states that his movements are they're inhumane, which is something I believe Gaara states, way later in reference to like those 6 paths characters. So it's almost as if it's like something far beyond what you've seen thus far. And it's actually kind of in line if you supplement it with other things. Alone, I agree. I don't think Sasuke knows what he's talking about, but I think there are narrative things like that statement in the series. For example, 1010 making remarks about Neji's rotation being an even greater defense than Gaara's sand, even though she was knocked out, right? But the data book states the same thing. So it's more or less maybe you can make explanations if you couple those, as in maybe Neji told her about it, stuff like that, right? So with supplementary material like Guy and Kakashi in the war arc, they can combo attack together with the 6th Gate and Raikiri respectively. And since we do know the Raikiri is primarily a speed amp, you could argue that maybe Guy's slightly faster in that department. And then how I interpret 7th Gate is more or less that Kakashi with all of his jutsu, all of his 1,000 jutsu and everything, his full toolkit is comparable to 7th Gate Guy. And I think 8th Gate is just completely beyond Kakashi, even with Kamui, as I think that's the whole narrative, right? As Kakashi says, like, Dad, it's exactly as you said. He surpassed me. So that's how I interpret it, as maybe Guy can be slightly faster. It just really does depend on the forms. One thing that's interesting, though, is they should progress rather linearly. So, for example, the 3rd data book states that Guy is the most dedicated shinobi ever, and his dedication is to training. Rock Lee is also to training, it's under him, and Tobi Rama is to perfect himself under him in 3rd place, right? And then Kakashi in the 1 Decade 100 Ninja Guy stated to hone his abilities every single day. So they're always training. Now there is one interpretation to say that Guy here could be above Kakashi, and that interpretation is to say that Kakashi, after meeting Sakumo, finally gets rid of his mental handicaps. He's finally back to who he was in his Anbu days. He's finally back to that level, to that war arc level. But the only time he ever got another chance to show that, when not being basically dead, was against Sasuke, who mentally nerfs him, as he makes the remark about how he feels the same as Hiruzen did when he fought Orochimaru back in the day. So it's like, maybe that guy, presuming he didn't just train his butt off, to then match that war Kakashi. Maybe he was slightly above Kakashi. We just don't know. Guy's kind of ambiguous. So that's kind of how I relate the two. I think it's a bit hard to tell, but I think they're generally pretty close depending on forms.
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to talk about, because, me and Virtue kind of decided this is how I should, because you can ask him, I was, really trying to sell it for Guy, because he's, the underdog.
Yeah.
But, Sasuke is, a bad matchup for a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying Guy is completely useless against this Sasuke. What I'm going to say, though, this is going to be up to the individual. This is going to be up to the individual viewer and how you want to take this kind of stuff. So unlike Kakashi from part 1 to part 2, who we get a confirmation that he's gained something new in his arsenal, which was the Manku Sharingan, and by extension, Kamui, we don't get that kind of confirmation from Guy. We don't see that, okay, he said something like, I can only do this, but, the gates, whatever, or I can only open up to, the 5th gate in part 1. And then in part 2, he just, says, oh, yeah, but, I've accumulated an extra gate that I can use. To me, it's just the way I've always interpreted it. He's always had up to the 7th gate in his arsenal. He just has never come across an opponent that made him need to use it before. This same Guy, although he does get stronger, just casually as he trains over time, his arsenal still remains the same. He still should be able to access 7th gate even in the beginning of Shippuden. So it just depends on how far you think God would go at this point in the series. If you think he just stops at 6th gate, I personally think that Sasuke at this point would be able to stand against him. Now, because, I mean, Sasuke's arsenal is kind of like whack at this point, even if it is like without his Manga Sharingan, because he's got the post Orochimaru absorb stuff. He's got the healing. He's got his snake substitution. So like he's got the snakes in general. He's got Manda if he needs it. He's got his curse mark with wings that can fly. That's already going to give him an advantage over Guy in the first place. So like, I know Guy can jump pretty high, but I don't know. I think with Sasuke's Sharingan and his wings, he might still be able to evade Guy as much as he needs to. So and with his Chidori stream being a bit of an issue too as a defense mechanism, and if Guy tries to blitz him, is because, and like I said, it depends on how you scale Guy's speed in the gates too. Like we were talking about this also. We're thinking like the Raikage should be faster than, I mean, Guy's fast in the 6th and 7th gate, like for sure, but A is like ridiculous. Like he's on par with that Minato level speed. He's relative to KCM1 Naruto, which is pretty much like Minato level teleportation speed. So it's like he's incredibly fast, and Sasuke was actually able to react to him like coming at him like point blank and base with his base Sharingan. So this Sasuke should more or less be able to do the same thing as far as reaction time goes. So 6th gate, I feel like Sasuke should be able to at least outlast Guy at bare minimum, because there's nothing too. A lot of people do overlook. They do. I myself find myself trying to like gas up Guy too much and overlook that the gates aren't permanent. Like they do have a finite time frame that he can use them. Even when he like stomped the 30% clone of Kisame, we see in the anime at least, like right after he's like huffing and puffing like already, and that he didn't even have the 6th gate open for that long in the first place. So 7th gate is even more so. 6th gate, long story short, 6th gate, I think Guy loses more often than not. I think Sasuke has a better chance of outlasting him, just even if he has to rely on defense alone. Well, it's like 7th gate, this is going to be where I have to use the Kirin argument again, or the Kirin-like argument again. So this feat I'm going to bring up is going to be living in my head rent-free, and this might be something that I'll bring up again in the later entries. So in the War arc, when he fights against Madara as a Dentail Shinchuriki, 7th gate Guy literally is able to press Madara enough to get him into position to be able to launch Hirodora at point blank. Now, obviously, I know like the Hirodora didn't amount to any damage to Dentail's Madara, but you put anybody else in that position, most characters in that position, replace one Madara, they might get cooked right then and there. I don't know. I told Virtue like, feel free to call me out if you need to, but or anybody needs to. But that feat is probably the most impressive thing he does outside of the 8th gate. I don't know. I feel as though like if he's able to do something anywhere similar to Sasuke on the ground, that is, if Sasuke does not take flight yet, I don't know. I think Sasuke might get cooked there. And something that people need to remember too is that same guy was actually slightly fatigued a little bit. That was a guy who you could argue wasn't even at 100%, because in the couple of panels before that, or a couple of chapters before that, we see that on his way to go help Kakashi wherever he thinks Kakashi's at, like Lee has to carry him. Like Guy is not really in the best like he's not physically in the best condition. He's like kind of having to like rely on Lee to carry him or whatnot. So you can argue like even then like he's not even at 100%, and then he still was able. He still wasn't even in the 7th gate, but he's still able to save Kakashi from Madara's true secret orbs, heading at Kakashi at full speed.
I think the 7th gate stuff is super impressive. Like, I'm with you. I think it could definitely be interpreted as maybe one of his most impressive things, just considering that, like, how he's able to press Madara. Maybe you take the hitting indicators as maybe a connection, so like he actually does land a hit on Madara, or maybe that was Guy just like striking really hard and then there's no connection. It's just where the attempted strike is supposed to be. We don't really know, but you can interpret it a couple different ways. One thing I would say though for that, in my interpretation, as I do think it's a bit of an ambiguous thing, but I know LightningSnow takes a bit of a more hardcore approach to it than I do, which is fine. And I usually say that like, so Madara here kind of takes it as disrespectful that Guy doesn't go into the 8th gate, and he even mentions as much. So maybe here he's trying to actually humiliate Guy and just kind of weaving around everything he has, because it's not like Guy's gonna whip out any moves, and that's why whenever he goes for the Hirodora, which he's seen before, he just whacks him down with his staff, But I think the biggest thing that I would bring up here is in my opinion, I think Guy's probably gotten stronger than he was since the summit, because even though the summit was just say a couple of days ago, or like a week maybe, as some people interpret it, B states that you just get stronger from training. And this is something that would be the most applicable to someone like Guy. You know, someone like Guy who's like Lee, who stated in the Forest of Death to just create training exercises everywhere, wherever he may please. So he's kind of just always improving, honing his craft, fighting alongside somebody like Kakashi who's relative to him, trying to improve himself to keep up with that level. But my thing with the general idea is I'm just not sure if he could scale to that. But if you take it to say like maybe a 7th gate outside of that, I think you might be able to use his Kisame interaction to say that he could do really well against the Sasuke anyway, seeing as even though Kisame could react to base Guy's kicks, whenever Guy goes into the 7th gate, the Naruto birthday columns, which are canon, actually do mention that Guy uses the Hirudora in response to Kisame's Super Shark Bomb, which means that Kisame is not actually reacting relatively or faster than Guy, you know, so it's only at bare minimum, it's either Guy is greater or he's just relative to. And then you can use a couple metrics to compare 5 Kage Summit Sasuke and then Kisame, seeing as Kisame fights B at the same time basically as Sasuke in the Summit Room. It literally takes place within the same chapter frame. So what's interesting is both of them scale to Itachi in one way. For example, Kisame can scale to a 3 Tomoe Itachi, generally speaking. The reason as to why I say this is, for example, whenever he first meets Itachi, he wants to press him, then the MS comes out and he's like, okay, never mind. The same thing happens basically in the games, where even prior to going to fight Sasuke, a really sick Itachi with his 3 Tomoe can completely spar with Kisame. They're very relative. Then the MS comes out and Kisame's like, okay, no, I'm done. Kisame concedes that the MS, with that ability in particular, they might be able to just go take down Jiraiya, stuff like that. So it's like the MS is a higher tier. Kisame's relative to 3 Tomoe Itachi.
Yeah.
Sasuke, during this whole arc, is supposed to be surpassing Itachi, which he finally does, or doesn't, but he finally gets just under by the time he gets to V4, but then he blinds out. So, you know, you make several different comparisons, such as C comparing them, Danzo compares them, he compares their genjutsu, says it's a night and day difference, Itachi's still greater. Then we get the 4 data book stating that EMS Sasuke is now equals to his brother. So, I'd say that, you know, he's at least not above a full MS Itachi. So I think they could be in the same tier, same ballpark. I think it just depends on how you interpret how far Guy is above Kisame, and then how far you think Sasuke is above Kisame. And then the one thing that's important to mention, which is what you mentioned earlier, is Sasuke is good at fighting characters faster than himself. Like literally against the Raikage, he's fighting maybe the fastest person in the world, other than like Obito, so the fastest known person in the world, for example. He's just like, okay, I cannot react to this or combat it, so I'm just going to put a defense up, in which he can still fully erect the Enton whenever the Raikage is moving his lateral bolt of pain, where Sasuke can tank on the neck. There's just a giant bruise on his neck, and this is kind of something that like the fan book, the second fan book, notes about the Raikage. It's like his professional wrestling, you know, WWE style of fighting, right? So that's kind of how I interpret it, as in like, Sasuke is really good at fighting stronger opponents, even if you say that Guys may be slightly stronger. So I'd say that, in my opinion, for this Kage Summit match, I'd say that Sasuke should have an edge, but I could definitely see both.
Yeah, that's another thing I was gonna say too. Is like I'm glad you brought the Susanoo Enton beat up, because that's a perfect counter for a Guy. Like yes, like I said, I can see that like A is faster than Guy. Probably, I mean, you could make a decent argument for 7th gate Guy being faster than A, but I think that A's top speed, like I think A is slightly faster than 7th gate Guy.
Yeah. Well, even then, I was gonna say like the chapter synopsis statement for 457 or 458 states that A is the strongest soldier in gathering alongside the other strongest soldiers, talking about the 5 Kage. So maybe it's like of the known shinobi, stuff like that, which could include like Kakashi or whatever. You know, he also calls himself the fastest shinobi in the war, talking about his body flicker.
So like,
yeah,
Guy wouldn't be able to just straight up blitz Sasuke. Like Sasuke should have the reaction time necessary to be able to put up his Enton Susanoo. And I mean, I guess Guy could in theory still do it, but he'd just get cooked. So unlike A, he won't. I don't think he'll be able, fast enough to just chop his arm off. Maybe he just, casually just breaks it off. I don't know. But in any case, like But I mean, that said, though, he does have Hiradora that he can still rely on from a range. And I don't know if like I can like comfortably say that like Sasuke's full body at that point, you know, or full extent Susanoo can withstand a point blank Hiradora from Guy. Like I know Guy was able to do the same thing to Madara in the war arc, but we don't really see what happens to it afterwards. We don't know if Madara like you know what I'm saying? We don't know if like it broke. We don't know if Madara had to like
It's just like it had.
Yeah,
That's all we
like-
know. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I mean,
It could have gotten stronger, but 1.2, if you do want to, you know, if you want to play devil's advocate, argue for Guy for a minute, you could say that the Susanoo, Sasuke's in particular in the summit, has some bad affinities when it comes to air propulsion. Like Danzo's wind is just, it busts the back of the Susanoo wide open, stuff like that. The Baku even poses a bit of a threat to it, had he not been stuck due to its vacuum, stuff like that. So there definitely are some threats. Even Kabuto, he uses water style to go under the Susanoo because that is a weak point. So if that's something Guy could analyze, he might be able to.
well, that's the thing too is like if we're talking about in character, Sasuke might be thinking he's like all that in a bag of chips, which I mean he's got room to think so. I'm not dissing him. My point in saying that is like Sasuke might do what he did against the Raikage and think that, well, you know, putting up, you know, a Susanoo Inton shield is enough to like make the person stop in his tracks. Like I don't, like in his defense, he wasn't just expecting the Raikage to just not care about his arm. So it definitely was a good idea. But my point in saying that is like if Sasuke kind of does the same thing and he just like stands there and thinks that like Guy can't do anything to him, then I mean Guy can just like, okay, well, I can't blitz you. I can just Hiradora you right there. And I don't know. I'm not so confident that even, especially if he's not in his full body Susanoo, you know, his full extent Susanoo. If he's just in the rib cage and he's taking the Hiradora at point blank, I don't know. I'm not so sure Sasuke has the durability to survive something like that. So I guess in my opinion, it might just come down to like how because that's another thing too is like Sasuke kind of does know the general like consensus of Guy's arsenal, right? But he doesn't know everything about him. He doesn't know about the seventh gate. He doesn't know about, you know, Hiradora. So it's like that might pose a problem. And while we're talking about like the arsenals, Genjutsu is something that we probably should mention. And like I told Virtue, I'm not gonna be like that guy that just says like, okay, since Guy, you know, knows about the Sharingan and knows about Genjutsu, that he's gonna automatically be able to avoid it. Like, don't get me wrong. As far as Genjutsu, I would probably give it more often than not to Guy to be able to avoid it. But with Sasuke having, you know, a keen intellect and precision, you know, and besides, it's kind of, I mean, you can make the implication that Guy has been caught by Kakashi in a Genjutsu before. Because, like, I mean, how else would he have had to train against Sharingan Genjutsu? How else would he know to, like, come up with the strategy to avoid Genjutsu? Because he's been caught. He's been on the receiving end of a Genjutsu. So, with Sasuke's intellect and his toolkit, I'm not, you know, saying it's out of the realm of possibility that Sasuke can put him in a Genjutsu. When it comes to Hebi Sasuke versus Guy, I think that Guy loses when he's in the 6th gate. And I think that Sasuke still wins in the 7th gate, but extremely high diff. Kage Summit Sasuke, I think that Guy actually has a little bit of an easier time against Kage Summit Sasuke, ironically. If only because he loses all like the Orochimaru hacks that he has. And the fact that if Guy is able to stay on the defensive, both either in the 6th gate or on the 7th gate and react to any of the Inton that's being shot at Guy, then Sasuke might burn out his eyesight before Guy burns out his gates. So it also depends like who you think runs out of steam faster. I'd probably give it to Guy in the 7th gate, 6, maybe 7 out of 10 times. But if he goes into the 6th gate, I don't know. I think Sasuke probably still, just being able to react to the Raikage, his feats with as far as defense goes. So that's my take on that one.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you want to touch on the Genjutsu point, I think he does have I think Sasuke probably has a stronger Genjutsu ability than Kakashi. I think Kakashi's ace would just be to say he can Genjutsu Obito in the war, which is true, but you know, Kakashi has gotten stronger, a lot stronger since then. So, I think the whole narrative for Sasuke fighting Deidara is kind of what the third data book, it talks about like favorite battles and it kind of describes them. And it talks about like Sasuke versus Deidara. It says like two very, different ninja use contrasting styles in a heated battle. It's a close range versus long distance. And then Sasuke actually overcomes that disadvantage through the power of his Sharingan. It's like Sasuke is having to show off the mastery of his Sharingan to beat somebody who's meant to counter the Sharingan so that he could then go fight Itachi, who has honed his MS beyond the limits of the MS. So it's like Sasuke has to hone his to master it beyond what anyone else can. And so I think it's like he could probably, if he does catch him, it's going to be a lot more devastating than what Kakashi would have caught him in.
Yeah.
For example, I also think he'd be more prone to catch him in something hardcore than Kakashi. For example, if it's nothing crazy, Kakashi probably wouldn't even use it. You know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't even go for the Genjutsu just not to waste that chakra. But Sasuke probably would. You know what I mean?
Well,
especially with the MS. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. Like, for Sasuke, all he has to do, I mean, even if he is able to catch Guy, even in a split second, let's argue a best case for Guy. If Guy is somehow able to break out of it due to his, immunity, whatever kind of immunity he has to Genjutsu, Sasuke can just put him in Genjutsu within a split second and just Amaterasu him right there, and that's it. Like,
yeah.
I mean, so yeah. So yeah, I maybe I'm like sleeping on Sasuke, but I feel like at 6th gate Sasuke does beat Guy, but I feel like 7th gate might just be a little bit too tough because of the new added, technique that Guy has in his arsenal with Hiradora, his speed. I don't know. Now we go on to EMS, and I don't know. It's like I want to go ahead and just give it straight to Sasuke, which I do think it. In all honesty, it does go to Sasuke. But again, that one Madara feat, it's like it's keeping me from like feeling like Sasuke. I don't know. I'm just like, I feel like Sasuke has okay, if we're going off reaction time, Sasuke was able to keep up with a KCM2 Naruto and was able to start perceiving better and better how Obito was moving. Like, he was able to pinpoint Obito's location as the fight was going. And so, like, Sasuke's reaction time and speed is no joke.
DSM Naruto at that, yeah.
So, but then, like, again, like, it's like, and maybe it's me, like, maybe I'm, like, not fully taking into account, like, what you were saying earlier about how Madara was probably not taking, he probably had the same mindset as he did against the 5 Kage. He wasn't, like, totally taking the guy seriously, like, just, like, seeing what he could do or how much he could take, I guess. But it's like, what I use to combat that is like Guy not being in like tippy top shape, and like, and him still being able to press Madara enough to get him in a position to hit him with Hiradora. Like, that's what's like really back and forth with me on every single one of these entries. And like, I don't know, I'm just like, I'm not entirely like sure how to really scale Guy here when it comes to Sasuke. I'm just so confused half the time. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Well, I think, in my opinion, I think I'm with you in that initial thought you had. As well, I do think the feat's crazy. I think at this point, I think Kakashi is a literal monster in the war arc. And especially if you look at just his relativity to Guy. And let's say that, for example, let's say Guy, even though he's not shown on screen, for whatever reason, he's acclimating alongside Kakashi. So whenever Kakashi is swapping hands with Rinnegan Obito, stuff like that, we could say Guy could do the same thing. Whatever. Let's just say it, for the sake of the argument. And then by the time we get to this point, the idea is that like that Kakashi is like a KCM2 rival for Naruto, right? And this Sasuke here, and I know people have gone over it before of why the curse mark amp is basically nothing but just the ability to use Senjutsu, and then Naruto's chakra cloak for Sasuke isn't much because Sasuke already has a monstrous amount of chakra. Sasuke's fighting alongside a KCM2 Naruto with stage mode stacked on top of it. You know what I mean? And it's like, he's so strong that like Orochimaru says that, he's gonna be somebody who's gonna surpass Madara. Tobirama's like, it's an Uchiha who shows the same potential as Madara, and he once did, and stuff like that. So it really does show the level that Sasuke is getting at. So I think Sasuke's pretty far beyond. I also do interpret him of at least having a perfect Susanoo whenever he's able to do the majestic attire, stuff like that. And even if you want to go with the more pseudo perfect form that people don't like to give him before, it still has legs. You can still jump around, has a sword, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, Guy might not be able to do much if it's not stagnant. You know what I mean? Like, he landed the Hiradora on Madara's because Madara's was stagnant, and now this Sasuke's, probably even stronger than that Edo Madara. Maybe not an EMS one, depending on how you interpret it, but probably an Edo one. And it's like, could guy do that if he's jumping around though? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Susanoo arrows, stuff like that.
Yeah. So like, before, like, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was gonna say, like, I may have like not mentioned that I was when I was saying earlier about like Sasuke, like God being able to do this to Sasuke, like what he did against Madara. I was also obviously taking into account that he wasn't using in Susanoo. Obviously, if he's in Susanoo, it's a lot tougher for a guy to like land a hero door on him. But I was thinking, like, because in most battles, like, Sasuke doesn't like just go straight into Susanoo. So like, I feel like if it's in a position where Sasuke isn't using the Susanoo and he's able to press Sasuke enough, maybe he can get him in his position. But then, like, that's the thing is, like, again, talking about his reaction time now, it's a lot better. It's gotten a lot more keener over the course of the war. So like, hey, for all I know, as soon as the guy starts rushing him, like, Sasuke could just like blitz him with the Amaterasu shot, like right then and there, or Genjutsu, for all I know. So, I
even then, like in the EMS, much far before this, Kabuto calls the Enton Kagetsuchi the greatest ocular offensive ability, which is so telling, because it's like prior Itachi had something heralded as the greatest ocular jutsu, and that was the Totsuka blade and Yadamir. Here's the Enton now being the new, if you want to take that as like a narrative, you know what I mean? So it's like the Enton's nuts, and it can still act as like a defense, as we kind of highlighted in the Kage Summit section.
Yeah. So I will give this one to EMS Sasuke more often than not. Like, I already knew that going in, but it's like one of those things, like, I don't want to sleep on. And you know what? This is gonna be the tagline for the whole video. I'm gonna apologize to both Virtue and the viewer. Like, I am sorry if I was rambling a lot and like being incoherent in this video. It's just one of those things, like, this is probably one of the toughest videos and topics I've ever had to talk about, because of how little guys really used and talked about in videos. And so, like, for me, it's one of those things where, like, Guy is someone that's really well respected in both the verse and among the fandom, but he's never really talked about and put up against characters like this who are just hacks. And honestly, in any versions of these Sasuke's that we're talking about, they're hacks in different ways. And so, like, especially EMS and Hebi, honestly. But yeah, and so, like, I just wanted to like talk about like how I felt like Guy would be, and maybe this is like, you probably like retitled this video like how underrated is Guy, honestly, but because that's probably how it's gonna come across as you're probably watching it. And so, like, I'm sorry if I was like really incoherent in this video. I just was, as I was talking about it and as I was thinking about it. That's Virtue. I thought about this video for over a week, and I was still just really 50-50 on how to scale Guy when it comes to
to come to your defense. I'll come to your defense. I completely agree. Even when we were talking prior to this, even though I stand on more of the Sasuke side, I think Guy is just a hard character to scale. Like, for example, I've had a Guy video lined up for a while, but I just don't really know if I want to write it. You know what I mean? Because he's an awkward character. Yeah, no, I completely get you. He's a very awkward character, as in he has enough lore implications to know roughly where he's at, but he doesn't have enough to concretely say where he's at. What I mean? Like, so it's a hard match. It's
crazy. Well, also too, like, most of the time that people you do a verse battle for a Guy or bring him up in a verse battle, it's typically the 8th gate that people are using more often than not. Like, I don't really see a whole lot of people talk about 7th gate or below, which, I mean, to be fair, most characters in Shippuden that go up against Guy, he's going to need to use the 6th or 7th gate. So that there is that. But yeah, that explains like my whole like kerfuffle on this video, guys. Like, I don't mean to like ramble too much. It's just one of those things, like, Guy's a G, and I don't want to like underrate him, but Sasuke is broken. That's just I'm not even gonna front about it. I thought like recently, like over the like last year, I've really started to realize and appreciate like how strong Sasuke gets over the course of the series. There was a lot of times I was sleeping on Sasuke, especially EMS Sasuke. So yeah, long story short, yeah, I feel like EMS Sasuke does win against Guy more often. I think I'd probably give Sasuke 7 to 8 out of 10 times if I'm trying to gas up Guy as much as I possibly can.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a pretty fair range for EMS. Yeah. I might give it like a 9, but I definitely think maybe there's something Guy could pull off. If you want to give him that 7th gate feat and then take it to its highest ends, maybe you could say something pretty beneficial for him.
I'll retract. Okay, I'll retract. If it's not in the Susanoo, I'm gonna give it to guy like 6 or a 7 or 10 times. If Sasuke goes into any of the form of the Susanoo, like you know the one that was fighting against Obito or his perfect Susanoo, guy's cooked. Like ain't nothing you can do. So I wanted to
Okay. Yeah.
correct myself on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Virtue, for being on this this incoherent of a video.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, so I'm gonna apologize again for everybody who's listening. If I feel like I was just like not, if I wasn't like coherent in this one, I was still confused as we were talking about it even before we started recording. So let me know in the comments if you think I'm just like out of my mind and giving Guy way too much credit. I'm fully willing to believe I am. But thank you all for watching all the way to the end. If you have, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Make sure you go subscribe to Virtue's channel if you haven't already. Thank you all for watching. Till the next one, like the snow.